Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something huge. It's a fascinating and incredibly ambitious new theory of everything, one that proposes a completely radical new foundation for our entire universe.
So the whole theory really kicks off with this one single powerful question. What if reality isn't this messy collection of different particles and forces? What if it's all just the inevitable mathematical consequence of a single underlying geometric object? Okay, let's really get into this.
And the claims, they're just breathtakingly bold. The authors are proposing that from the properties of this one shape, they can calculate the mass of the Higgs boson, explain what dark matter is, derive fundamental constants, and even explain why we live in 3 dimensions of space and 1 of time. Now, the really key idea here is that this isn't about fudging the numbers to fit the data. It's about calculating the universe from scratch with almost no experimental numbers plugged in.
So how on earth could any of this possibly work? Well, the theory starts by telling us to throw out one of our most basic ideas about the universe, the notion that space is this smooth, continuous background.
Right. So instead of that smooth, fabric-like space-time we usually think of, this model says that at the most fundamental level, we're talking the Planck scale, reality is actually a discrete lattice, a crystal. And this right here, this illustrates the core shift in thinking. Particles aren't little things moving through space. They're more like vibrations or specific patterns of the crystal itself.
The fundamental atom of this universal crystal, the star of the whole show, is a very specific 4-dimensional shape called the 24 cell. It's this beautiful, highly symmetric object, and according to these papers, when you pack these 24 cells together, they form the very structure of space-time itself, something they call the D4 lattice.
Okay, so we have a crystal made of 4D shapes. That's a mind-bender right there. But how do you get from a static geometric object to the complex, dynamic universe we actually live in? Well, the theory proposes 2 incredibly clever mechanisms to make that leap. First off, time itself is supposedly an emergent property. The papers talk about this kind of geometric frustration inside the crystal. Imagine trying to tile a sphere perfectly with flat squares. You can't do it, right? There's this built-in tension. Well, the theory says a similar tension exists when you pack these 4D shapes, and that tension can't be resolved in 4 purely spatial dimensions. So the crystal is forced to kind of break its own symmetry. One dimension is forced to behave differently from the other 3, and that different dimension, that's what we experience as time. Secondly, the physical laws we see all around us are said to be written into the very connections of this lattice. Think of it like this. A donut has one hole, and that fundamentally limits the ways you can loop a string through it. Using a related mathematical idea, the theory argues that the specific number and type of holes and connections in this 24-cell structure create the fundamental rules of the game, like why protons are stable, or why we never see a lone quark. The laws of physics, then, become theorems of geometry. So, this is the crucial point. If the universe is nothing more than the mathematical properties of this crystal, then we should be able to just sit down with a pen and paper or, a computer and actually calculate its fundamental constants. And that's exactly what the authors of this theory claim to have done. And this is where things go from just an interesting idea to a potentially testable one. The authors claim their calculations produce these values. Just look at the Higgs boson mass. It matches the experimental value almost perfectly. And the fine structure constant, a number that has mystified physicists for a century, is also incredibly close. It even makes a specific prediction for the mass of neutrinos, something our labs are working really hard to pin down. The implication here is just wild. These aren't random numbers. They're direct outputs of the crystal's pure geometry. And here's the real kicker. To get our current standard model of physics to work, scientists have to go out and physically measure about 20 different fundamental constants, and then plug them into the equations by hand. It works, sure, but it feels a little arbitrary. This theory claims it can throw all of that away. It says all those numbers can be derived from just 2 fundamental inputs, the size of the lattice cells and a single parameter for that geometric tension we talked about. It is a radical claim of ultimate simplicity.
And the claims just keep coming, scaling up to the entire cosmos. Gravity, they say, isn't a fundamental force at all, but just emerges from the elasticity of this crystal lattice. The theory gives a specific calculation for the ratio of dark matter to normal matter, and even claims the amount of dark energy in the universe is exactly 2/3. It also suggests that the cosmological constant problem, one of the biggest headaches in physics, is solved by an exact cancellation that just falls out of the geometry.
Okay, let's just step back for a moment.
It is absolutely crucial to say that these are preprints. They have not yet been peer-reviewed and validated by the wider physics community. So we're not here to verify these extraordinary claims, but to really explore the profound idea that they represent.
This theory really embodies the ultimate dream of a mathematical universe. It's suggesting that reality isn't some messy, arbitrary collection of particles and forces that we just happen to be able to describe with math. No, it's proposing that reality is a mathematical object, and everything we see and experience is just a shadow, an emergent property of its pure geometric form.
It really is a staggering thought. And whether this specific theory turns out to be correct or not, it challenges us to think about the very deepest nature of existence. It leaves us with this question that feels both ancient and incredibly futuristic. Is the rich, complex tapestry of our physical world simply the reflection of a hidden, perfect, and mathematical reality?